Wodumo's live stream not only shocked South Africans, but it's also got everyone talking about the prevalence of violence against women. Well, joining us to discuss this further is Javu Baloyi from the Commission for Gender Equality, and he joins us from our Pretoria studios. Mr. Baloyi, thank you very much for your time. I ideally would have wanted your other guest, who is unfortunately running late at this time, to also join us, but hopefully she will join us when she does. I wanted to focus this discussion on men in our society. What is going on with men in this country and the issue of them abusing women?
Thank you very much. I should think, as a Commission for Gender Equality, we have found a situation wherein we're not doing enough as men, we're not doing enough as society, we're not doing enough as the churches, because violence that it's there in the society. It's us as men that is inflicting the pain on women. We need also to focus on what is it that we are doing for the boy child, and take advantage of the life orientation, the basic education, and inculcate the culture in the curriculum, the culture of respect, the culture of knowing where to draw the line, the culture of the mindset that a boy child is born with, to say that this, I have to do this because society taught me to be man enough. I have to do this because nobody should talk to me in that way, particularly a woman. Forgetting that that the very same person you are hating is a human being just like yourself, because if you meet your equals as men, you're gonna run for cover, forgetting that you have got the power to beat women. So those are the things that we need to nuance as society and gender to such an extent that society at large should discuss this. Also, we need to engage traditional leaders because some of the things that some of us who have been fortunate to go to circumcision schools are not good enough when you teach a young child the issues of the masculinity, toxic masculinity, because we are taught some of these things at an early age, and we grow up with it thinking that it's the way of doing things, and that's by the way, that's not the case. So those are the things that we need to eradicate in society.
Mr. Baloyi, I just want to bring into this conversation a clip of the father of Babes Wodumo. That's Mr. Mbongeni Simelane. He spoke yesterday and he seemed to suggest that Mampinja has a violent streak to him. And I want us to focus a little bit on that. But before we do that, before we discuss this with you, I just want us to have a listen to this soundbite of Reverend Simelane talking about this element about jealousy that seems to be inherent in Mampinja.
He once pushed my daughter on the steps at Westville, and my daughter could not dance and walk. She had to cancel some other gigs because of that. I know the media was very much angry and said, Babes is not coming, Babes is not going there, Babes is not going there. Mandla is in between, is always putting fire between Babes and some of other musicians. He wants to control my daughter, and while he is hitting my daughter and kicking my daughter and closing my daughter behind the door until my daughter is all right, then he allowed my daughter to go not stolen. But I'm aware of all that. I don't like that.
So, Mr. Baloyi, there is that comment from Mr. Simelane. Some behaviors are unique to individuals. How do you teach someone to not be jealous and to be more trusting of their partner?
It goes about their own insecurities. People, there are a lot of people who are insecure. You see and hear these cases coming before the Commission for Gender Equality. You can just realize that this pure jealousy, insecurity, because some do not believe, like we look at the case of Mampinja. He might not even believe that, Babes has chosen him over all the men that might have been pursuing her in her life. and then he was the lucky one, so he needs to protect her in all, give everything possible, and that ends up leading to jealousy because it builds up. It doesn't start like it's a jealousy. It starts, it's small and it ends up being big. And, you know, I was at pain yesterday listening to the father on ENCA talking about, no father should talk about that, because what we need to do is just ensure that, you know, Babe's life is not, it's not messed up by this incident. And also to ensure that, you know, we get the help from Mampicha. As much as, you know, it's a perpetrator in this, he needs assistance, he needs help, because his rage, first time he denied it, and then when South Africans were all in arms, divided, when Masichaba Ndlovu talked about it on Metro FM. So those are some of the things that we need to do. We need to teach us men, we need to learn when to let go, when to give up, when also to be secure and content about the environment that we find ourselves in. It cannot be that, you know, we are the only ones who are jealous. Even women are jealous, but they don't beat us up. They don't use physical violence and force and insult us. But we also need to teach us men. We need a radical mind change in South Africa amongst all of us men. We cannot be said that I'm not doing it as Javu Baloyi. But the bottom line is that I'm a man also. I'm prone to do something like that. We need to help Manda, and more especially the celebrity fraternity. You hear a lot of stories coming from that field. You have heard the story of Arthur beating someone, Sisi, and throwing her by the stairs of the house. And you wonder how many of those stories that are happening behind closed doors, because domestic violence, you don't see it at all. And then how many are jealous over their partners and they're doing wrong things, and they can't, because of fear of society, because of emotional trauma and pain, they can't come out in the open and say, I'm being abused because of us. We vilify them as society. We are not supportive. We don't believe the victims unless otherwise we see physical pain and harm. And that's something that also us people of society, as South Africans, who must shoulder the blame in how we castigate people.
Mr. Baloyi, there's also the element about exposure to violent behavior from a young age. I just spoke to Guy Lem, for example, who says that he believes that this is actually something that should be looked closely, that exposure to violent behavior, particularly of young boys, this then, I suppose, carries itself into the age where they are older and they seem to perpetrate exactly the very same behavior and experience they have had. Do you believe that preventing young boys from either seeing or experiencing violence will actually ensure that in future we don't see that happening?
Most definitely. There's a young man around here, Pretoria. You'll be shocked, a well-educated man. You know, he used to beat his girlfriend and then later on wife. And we find out about it and we ask him, because the lady came to the commission to report the case. We end up asking him, what is it that, you know, made you to beat her? He said, you know, I saw my father beating my two, because the father was in a polygamous marriage. I saw beating my mothers and then killing them, and then they listened to him. And he thought, you know, that was the way of making a woman to listen to him if, you know, they were having an argument. Because, you know, he had a short temper. He thought that, you know, his father was doing that in order to address the issues in the right way. Only to, now the young man is divorced because of that situation. Now he's teaching other men about the issues of violence at a young age, how it affected him, how he know a lot of his mates thought violence at a young age. When they grew up, they're going to do what their fathers and their uncles and their brothers were doing. So it is very incumbent upon us, excuse me, to make sure that, you know, these young boys at a young age, what we need to shower them with is love. When we fight, we argue as parents. We must do in the closed doors and talk nicely. No physical violence, no verbal abuse, no emotional abuse. That, you know, they can see that, you know, my parents, if they've got the argument, they do it in the right way. So that's something that, you know, we need to make sure, as speedily as possible, teach South Africans across the spectrum. And I'm glad ENCA is raising this in a in the right way, that, you know, it's about education. It's about changing the mindset. It's about, you know, some people have never been told by their parents that I love you, my son, or walk with them somewhere, go to the park or do something, watch them play football or any kind of sport. Because what they know is being so at and nothing else, and the mother being treated as if, you know, she's an object, and objectified, demeaned all the time by the father, and the boy child think that is the way of life. And that's something that, the Basic Education Department, Commission for Gender Equality, Chapter 9 institution, the church also must play a role. We have got Sunday schools in the church. Every church, even those who are not going to church, the atheists also must also respect this fundamental principle of respecting other people's human rights and making sure that, we create a safer society where there's no gender oppression inequality. And that can go a long way in creating a South Africa of all of us that we aspire and want.
Let me bring into this conversation now Criselda Dudumashe. She's a celebrated radio host and, of course, activist herself. And she's someone that is not new to this discussion of gender-based violence because you've experienced this yourself. I just want to ask you this question. When you saw that video of Mambinja assaulting Babes Wodumo in that fashion, what emotions did that evoke for you?
For me, I was not surprised because the one constant that we know for sure, once an abuser, always is. And unfortunately, we don't have resources and systems for proper rehabilitation and the kind of rehabilitation that helps perpetrators of violence to walk away, to be better people. All we advocate for is imprison the person, lock them up and throw away the keys. But that's not corrective. Because if I grew up in an environment, as in the previous Javu has indicated, that if I'm in an environment that never affirms me, where I was never loved, where I've never been encouraged to connect with my emotions, it's easier to just, see it as a norm, see it as normal. So for me, it was just reality strike and enforcing the fact that the time is now for us to provide healing spaces for those who want to change. Because as much as we do have the law enforcement on our side, but what is it that we have? Because you and I, it's easier to say to people, walk away. But we live with people who lie, and that's an obsession. We live with people who abuse substance, and that is an obsession. And when I say abuse substance, it's fashionable to watch our friends drinking themselves to a stupor. And hell knows what then happens when they are drunk. So we live with a myriad of situations that we are obsessed with, and people just don't know how to be corrected.
I'm picking up a very interesting word that you used. We live with people who lie.
Yeah.
You recently were very disappointed with your husband.
Yeah.
When you said he laid a hand on you for the first time after having come from a previous relationship of abuse. Talk to us about what that experience was.
Look, for me, my current, well, that sounds like somebody asking for being raped, what were you wearing? I wouldn't know what pushed his buttons, and I had indicated various times that the matter is sub judice. We currently, it's in court. Therefore, to talk about it without his right of reply would be wrong. And the invitation to come here was about what we're seeing, which is in the public spotlight, and that is Babes Wodumo. And for now, I think I respect the family as well, not to talk about our personal issue. But as an activist, as you did introduce me, you did indicate that this is the space that I've occupied for the longest time. And for me, when this thing with Babes Wodumo happened, it's in many homes. It's in many homes. A matter that I would make reference to is a matter that I raised on Duduzi Manana, where I indicated that it's all good and well to say let's put him in prison. Those who can afford fines, pay fines. And unfortunately, in the payment of fines, the individual still comes back and perpetrates, still comes back and abuse, because we do not We don't have a proper strategy on how to deal with gender-based violence. That's why we always caught off guard. That's why we reactionary. And that is why we harm. I mean, you look at how when the issue of Babes Wodumo came the first time, Mastaba was vilified by people who have no insight on what happens during gender-based violence. And it was just, you know, emotionally reacting to situations that we're not informed about. It's easy to say walk away. What does walk away entail?
Criselda, let me bring in Javu Baloyi, who is in our Pretoria studios. And just as a final question to you, sir, how can men contribute to the fight against women abuse?
We need few men that are button holders of an endeavor to create a safer society for all of us. We need men to understand that women do not need them to protect them, but to be supportive and respect them and make sure that, you know, whatever craft they do, if I'm married to, says Criselda Canada, she's doing such a wonderful job for society, I must respect her. Even if she comes back 1 o'clock in the morning, it's trust that it's there between the two of us, and I must be supportive in all given time. And also, we need those men that are being laughed at, men like myself, Patrick Shai, Bafana Kumalo, Mbuyiselo Bota, and other men who are on the forefront of endeavor to fight gender-based violence, to go all out there in society and ensure that, you know, we bring this good message of good hope to the boy child who feels that is not being loved. And we have got the churches can do programs like Adopt a Boy Child. Children who do not have fathers in their home, and teach them these things, because oftentimes it's difficult for mothers to know everything that, you know, a boy needs to be taught, because they don't see them. They will open up when they see other men talking about these issues. We must increase the forums for men, and these forums must work together with women formation, so that, you know, we find ourselves one-on-one. We mustn't talk past each other. That can be the South Africa, that can be the society that, you know, can be better for all of us, because if there will be mutual respect, it won't be them against us. It will be boy child, a girl child, a male and a female, together, sitting together and talking about what is it that if you are angry as a man, you want to lay a hand on me. What prompts you that? And somebody will come up, you know, I've seen people crying, saying that, you know, I'm sorry, I did this, I'll never do it again. Like Criselda has said, our correctional services must have a rehabilitation, serious rehabilitation processes, not for everyone else. For those who are doing gender-based violence, for criminal offenses, they must do it separately. But gender-based violence needs a serious attention from all sectors of society.
Javu Baloyi, thank you very much. Just as a final word from you, Criselda. You know, earlier we played a clip of the father of Babes Wodumo, Mr. Smelane, and he indicates something that is quite striking, that Mampintsha has a violent streak to him. He appears to be a jealous boyfriend. And the question I asked Javu Baloyi was, how do you teach someone to be more trusting of their partner?
It depends on where they come from. It depends on what informs that narrative of not trusting. He may be coming from an environment where he watched adults in his space cheating. He comes from an environment where he was told that your kind is not worthy to be loved by a Criselda. And he looks at a Criselda, looks at a Babes Wodumo and think, I'm not worthy to be loved by her. I don't deserve it. Self-esteem issues, it's a lack of self-worth. It's the narrative that was informed by his upbringing and what he's been exposed to.
Criselda Dudumashe, thank you very much for having come through as well.